When I think of love in the kitchen, I think of the word intentionality. There's so much intentionality that has to go into planning a meal. And I'm not just talking about making the dinner itself. Think you've got to make your list, you've got to go to the store, get your ingredients, get home, make the dinner, time the dinner so that it's on the table when everyone's ready and that it's still warm when it gets there. There's so much going into it. If you're having guests to your home for a Sunday supper or a holiday, you've got to coordinate with them on their schedules. Maybe they have allergies. Then your own family, of course, has schedules with work, school, extracurriculars. So there's so much competing against this idea of getting together and gathering around the table. And that's why I think it's so important to make it a priority. And the studies bear out that this is so powerful, especially in the family setting, that for years, studies have shown over and over again that children who eat with their parents at least 3 times a week have drastically reduced chances of participating in risky activities like drug, alcohol, promiscuity. They also have much better grades. They have better relationships with their parents. The communication lines are open. And despite this incredible information about how to make your family better, there's a lack of people doing it because only 30% of people make time to eat dinner together as a family. And so I'm a big believer that dinner as a family and even as a community, it should not be an occasion, it should be a habit. And so I have a few fun ideas of how you can incorporate intentionality into your gathering to sort of raise your gathering game and elevate the everyday dinner. First is the candles. I love the idea of having drippy candles at the dinner table, hopefully not too drippy, but having candles lit at the dinner table. My mother-in-law was totally shocked that we would light candles every night at the table, but I grew up and my mom always did that for us, and it was such a nice touch. It showed, okay, the table has been set, the scene has been set, if you will, and here we are ready to enjoy the evening. This isn't going to be just a quick kind of fast food experience. And so I love that idea of having candles at the dinner table. And then I also love the idea, speaking of table setting, the idea of having a nice plate that you like to use, whether it be the china set that you got at your wedding or maybe another set that you've collected over time, but eating on real plates I think is so nice. And I remember there was a girl I was friends with, and she said that she grew up and they always ate on paper plates and that it drove her nuts and that she just felt like it just didn't add anything to the meal. And I remember just thinking, gosh, when I grow up, I'm going to be sure not to do that. And so there's something about, although another layer of intentionality is required, you have to set the table and you have to also clear the table and do the dishes. It just creates a sense of permanence, a sense of, okay, I was cared enough even to have my own plate at the table. And I love that. And an interesting thought to consider, if you don't have a china set, it can be overwhelming to try to like purchase 8 to 12 place settings all at once. It's very expensive. And so something you can do is there's always the bargain basement, kind of finding vintage estate sale finds that are better deals. But then there's the idea of having someone buy them over time. If they ask, like if you have a mother or a sister who's like, oh, what do you want this year for Christmas? You can be like, oh my gosh, I've got my eyes on these plates and I would love just 1 or 2. And so then you can build the set over time. And not only is it a wonderful sustainable gift idea in this world of disposable goods, but it also is a beautiful heirloom piece that then you will remember the person who gave you the plates when you're setting the table and when you're dining, hopefully with those people at the table. And so that's a really fun idea of how to build a china set if you don't have one yet. And then in the same vein of decorating the table, there is the cloth napkin. There's just something about the touch of a cloth napkin. It elevates the experience. It kind of makes you feel like you're at a restaurant. It's kind of fancy. My daughter and I picked these out. We love them because they're colorful and they have little scalloped edges, and it then becomes kind of a game as to who's going to get what napkin, and she can help set the table. It makes setting the table fun. And then also an idea to kind of make things a little special on some nights. My family growing up, we did the You Are Special plate. And that was to celebrate people's achievements, whether they've been working on a particular virtue, whether they got a good grade or some other kind of achievement, anything really. It was just to celebrate them. And so you get the plate, and then you get to talk about what the person did and praise them for it. And even my husband and I will give each other the plate for different things that we've done, whether it's an act of love or an achievement. And it's a really lovely way to make people feel special at the table, which is really what all this intentionality is about. It's creating that environment that you're wanted, you're here at the table, you have a voice, and it can never start too young. A little side story is that my family, we always ate together growing up, and that was a lot to achieve because there were 7 children in my family growing up. I am the oldest, and my mom and dad made the effort to prioritize those dinners, and my mom preached it to many different people, and she practiced what she preached because she got dinner on the table every night, and we would eat with the tablecloth and candles, as I mentioned. And it was a really beautiful experience, not only aesthetically, but we got to then exchange so much about one another, whether we were having a trouble in school, whether we had just something that we were excited to share with people that we were looking forward to. So much of our worldview was formed at that table by talking about the Catholic lifestyle, the idea of really the formation of our thoughts on so much happened at that table. And so it was something that my husband and I decided we wanted to replicate, and we intentionally thought when we got married and spoke about it, we're going to sit down and have dinner every night together, and we're not going to involve media, we're not going to do kind of a TV dinner, we're not going to have our phones present, we're going to be present to one another and learn about one another, learn about our days, and exchange ideas and information. And then when we had our first child, there was the temptation. A lot of people we knew, they were like, oh, we put the kids to bed and then we eat because it's so crazy. And if you've ever eaten with small children, that is true. I mean, it gets a little chaotic and a little messy, and sometimes not just a little, but we thought, okay, we're gonna just take the hard road, and even if they're in their high chair, we're gonna pull them up to the table, and they're gonna be part of the conversation, and they're gonna eat the food we're eating, and they're going to know what it's like to have family dinner. And I can say now our oldest daughter is 4, and she is able to sit at the table, and she has for years. She's been sitting at the table, able to use her fork. She's able to participate in the conversation. She's able to talk with my husband and myself. When we have guests over, they're always amazed. Whoa, she's like talking like a regular adult. She prays at the beginning of her meal. She asks to be excused. It really is awesome. And it's the fruit of just saying, hey, we're gonna show up every night together as a family and maybe go through the growing pains of learning what manners are and how to be, but it really does pay off. And now our other little girl, she's little and in her high chair, can't talk yet, but she's up at the table participating, and it's just such a beautiful thing. And last but not least, I believe that in addition to making the food, you've got to set the mood. And that mood is often set with music. I love the idea of a record player. My sister turned me on to this the other year. I can't believe I've been living my life without one, but we got one last summer, and now we've been collecting records just over different holidays and birthdays. You know, people will get a record, and then it's sort of their fun record that they can put on. And when the music is playing at dinner, it just makes it have that beautiful vibe, that restaurant feel, and like we're here to enjoy the evening. And if you don't have a record player, obviously you can play through your phone, through a speaker, but it's just a fun idea that again makes dining all the more intentional. And so my prayer for you is that you would consider some of these ideas to incorporate into your own life, whether that's with your family, your friends, or the people that you're in fellowship with. You can incorporate it at your next Sunday supper. I love the idea of having a Sunday supper where you can rotate with different people, so it's not always on one person to host. They can, then you can add new people. It just kind of keeps it fresh. It's not always at the same house. And we recently hosted a Sunday supper and had the most beautiful note from one of our friends. They had just had a baby and they came over and their baby was with them, and they said, oh gosh, this was the most life-giving experience. And I was so touched by that. And I thought, you know what, that's what it's about. It's about life-giving. And so I hope that these ideas can help give life to your gatherings, be they small or great, for years to come, and build the idea of love in the kitchen.